Okay, thank God. Okay, Baruch Hashem. I don't know. I can only see 4 people.
It gets little and gets big by itself, and this whole thing, I turned it off because it was going crazy.
Giti, we can hear you. No. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. Okay.
Amen.
Well, amen. Thank you. Just 1 second. Just one more participants. Okay, I understand now. Okay, fine. Here we go. This is a very Shalom Aleichem, everybody. We're before we start the Baal Shem Tov, I didn't, for technical reasons, I didn't have a chance to find any new stories about the Baal Shem Tov, but I want to tell, since we're we're still in the energy of Gimel Tammuz, and we spoke about the Rebbe last week. I heard 4 short stories about the Rebbe, and we're going to start with, and since the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Baal Shem Tov, just like the Baal Shem Tov was the Rebbe, the Nasi Ador, the leader of his generation. So the Rebbe was the leader of the Dor, still is the leader of the generation, in our generation. So we're going to tell 4 stories. The first story, I don't remember if I.
Rabbi Leiter, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to disturb you. Do you want to give over the dedication now?
Oh, that's right.
For the class?
Why don't you?
Is that okay?
You
want me to read it out?
No, I think I can do it. Thank you. 1 second. I'm sorry. I think it's appropriate that I say it. Reba. 1 sec. Yes. We don't always dedicate these classes. Anybody who'd like to dedicate this class to someone can certainly be in touch with myself or with Reba to put it on one of the lists. I have dear friends in Florida, and this is dedicated to the father of Mrs. SUSAN GELLMAN. His name is YOEL DOVID ben ARYEH LEIB. What does it mean when you dedicate something in somebody's memory? It says, just like last week was the Hilulah, was the yortzeit of the Rebbe. Just with any person, each day on their yortzeit, the yortzeit is tomorrow, in Keter Shem, the neshama goes higher and higher. When you do things for the sake of that person, so it says we become the hands and the feet of the souls that are in heaven. They can't walk on their own. They can't take things and transform them from something physical to something spiritual. We can, and when we do it for the sake of the person, then we're helping them to go to a higher level in heaven. Okay, so you don't have to do anything. The fact that we said the name and that the class is again in the memory of Rabbi YOEL Dovid ben ARYEH LEIB. Okay, that automatically gets to the Shalman Aliyah. Okay, so we're back inside. So I say, I don't know about you guys, but I'm still, everywhere I go, I'm telling people, tell me about the Rebbe, tell me about your experiences with the Rebbe. I don't want to let go of the energy of Gimel Tammuz. And I heard 4 stories, and we're going to tell them quickly. I'm even afraid I told the first story before. That I don't think so. The first story is the story of Rabbi Shapiro. Did I tell the story of the mirrors? Giti, did I tell a story about mirrors last week about the Rebbe? Do you remember?
Not that I remember.
Okay,
I don't remember a mirror story.
Okay, so this Rebbe, I think his Mechoel Shapiro is a Chassid of the Rebbe from France. He came to Yerushalayim. Wait, just 1 sec. Reba, I'm on the Zoom. What's the matter? I don't know how to do that.
Did the text disappear from everybody or just from me?
Yeah, wait, no. Wait, see, I'm not working from my computer, so I can't.
Screen sharing disappeared.
Right. Okay. Just
Okay.
1 second. Can you? Maybe. What? Yeah, did fine. Well, I'm going to tell a few stories about the Rebbe. See if you can pull it back together. Okay. 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 I'm not working from my computer. I'm working from, like, David, I can see your whole now. I'm not working from my computer. I'm working from my iPad, and so I'm not sharing the screen with my assistant, and the internet just fell in her house. So, and I don't know how to record. I don't know how to record. Is there a way to record? I don't think so. If I'm not the host, and she can't make me the host because
It shows the recording is still on.
is it okay? So
It says it's a red button. It's a little red thing. It says recording.
okay, so then let's continue. Sorry for the delays. Okay, again, 4 stories that really changed my perspective. The first story is about Rabbi YOEL Shapiro. He was a Jewish person from France. He came to Eretz Yisrael. He was the principal of a women's seminary for French speakers, like a yeshiva for women. Okay, and he had a number of donors, people that were supporting the school that were here in Eretz Yisrael. And one of the donors came into their house once, and they asked a question. They said, what is it? Why do you have to have so many pictures of the Rebbe in your house? There are a lot of pictures of the Rebbe in your house. And Rabbi Shapiro said, I'll answer you in a minute. Just tell me something. How many mirrors do you have in your house? So the person thought,
Actually, it's coming back to me now, Shaul, but it's okay. Chazara is the essence of everything. Keep going.
Okay. He says, how many mirrors do you have in your house? And he says, I have 8 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms. Each room has a mirror, and there's 8 bathrooms. Each room has a mirror. That's 14. And there's 3 in the living room and 2 in the hallways. There's 5 and 14 is 19 mirrors. And so the Rabbi Shapiro says, why do you have 19 mirrors? We want to see how we look, right? We should look appropriately, for our station, etc. Okay, so Rabbi Shapiro said, I don't have 19 pictures of the Rebbe in my house, but I'll tell you something. You have a mirror because you want to see how you look, and I have a picture of the Rebbe because I want to see how I look. Okay, how I should look. Okay, when your person looks at the Rebbe, what's the idea of a Nasi, the leader of the generation? It's the same thing when we study the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, like we hear the stories of the Baal Shem Tov. It's about, you say the person is so great, he's such on a high level, it's not possible. No, that's the point. The fact that this is a person, that he is the leader of the generation, he's not just a tzaddik, he's not just a righteous person, that the righteous people were sent in this world to be examples for the rest of it. It's not just that. He's literally here because he has, we have the ability to connect to him, right? And so therefore, when a person studies the Torah of the Rebbe or hears stories about the Rebbe also, it gives him that ability to come out to that level, even though he might see another person that's beyond him. No, things about the Rebbe are within our ability. So the second story that I heard was a story, there was a particularly, there were a number of crazy people in Crown Heights. Okay, and some of them, the crazy people with a screw loose. Okay, so there was once a person, I don't want to say his name, right? And once a week, if not more, the Rebbe would give out dollars. Okay, so there would be sometimes 10,000 people. And of those 10,000 people, many hundreds, maybe thousands would ask the Rebbe a question. And the Rebbe would be on his feet from 11 o'clock after the prayers in the morning, sometimes until 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, right? Giving dollars, giving strength to people, blessing them. Okay. So after this, which for a normal person would have been an ordeal. Okay. I can't say how it is, but the Rebbe once said, when somebody asked him, how does he do it? The Rebbe said, how does a person feel when they're counting gemstones? Okay, a gemstone, each Jewish person, each soul is like a diamond. Okay, so I don't know if the Rebbe was weakened by it, but still it must have been exhausting for a person in his 80s, 90s to be able to be on his feet for so many hours. And so after all of this, like almost the last person that would be on the line would come to the Rebbe, and that person would say, and why he said it, I have no idea. But he said it in public. There were, who knows, a dozen people standing around, and he says to the Rebbe, I'm disappointed in you. I don't even know what he intended to say. He was a crazy person, okay? And what did the Rebbe answer? The Rebbe answered, me too. Me too. Me too, meaning the Rebbe said that no matter how much he accomplished, he wasn't satisfied. Okay, that's the second thing. Okay,
I just heard that story.
to be an example for other people. Okay, to be an example for other people. You just made me think of something else. Okay, and the first story is being an example for the other people is never being satisfied. Okay, what's the third story? The third story that when I told that story to a person who just lost a sister, Hashem, Baruch them and Dayanem, Rabbi Shlomo Raskin. He himself is the principal of the Beis Chana of the girls' seminary here in Tzfat. I told him that story. He just got up from Shiva, and he said he had a similar story by his father-in-law. His name was Rabbi Gorevich, and he was the principal of the Beis Yaakov, of the Beis Chana in Brunois, which is also in France. And he once wrote to the Rebbe, I have so much work. There's so much to be done. And all of the other Chassidim, it was the summertime, are going on vacation, and all I'm left with is anachot. Anachot are size. Size is the opposite of Chassidus says that one action is worth 1,000 size. Dax, do you hear it?
Yeah.
One action is worth 1,000.
Looking for a gift for a girlfriend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah. It's her 35th birthday. My budget's
Dax, Dax, we can hear you. We can hear you on the thing. Okay. One sigh is worth one action is worth 1,000 sighs. Okay, say them. And so he said, Rebbe, he wasn't complaining. He was asking for idud for support. And the Rebbe said to him, so much work. All of my shluchim are going on vacation. It was the summertime, and I'm left with so many sighs. And the Rebbe said, right, I have the same challenge. But the Rebbe said, right, also that he's up against incredible odds. And what does he do? He pushes ahead. And the third story and the fourth story finally is a story from Rabbi Weinberg. Rabbi Weinberg is a person I met many times. He had two hats. One hat was that he was the fundraiser for Lubavitch yeshivas. Okay, Rabbi Yosef Weinberg. Okay, and you know what? Today, the Chabad and Lubavitch is like a household word. Everybody speaks about it. Everybody knows about Chabad. Any Jewish person, wherever you go, if you have a problem, where do you go? The Chabad house. Okay, but that wasn't necessarily true 50 years ago. Okay, and Rabbi Weinberg was the main fundraiser, the responsibility of closing the deficit of the yeshiva was his responsibility, and it's a magushim tikkun thing. It's not easy. It you had to travel a lot and be and mamish bring yourself down like para adumi. He had to mamish come down to the level of the people and communicate with them, okay, and to hold his Chassidischkeit. It was very difficult. On the other side, he used to give a weekly class on the radio, one of the first Torah classes on the radio in Tanya. Tanya is the foundation textbook in Chabad Hasidus. Unbelievable. By the way, Tanya is in the grasp of everybody today. There are so many commentaries. Doesn't need a class. You can simply, if you don't know where to find the commentaries, you can ask me. Ask me. There's in English, in Arabic, in French, Spanish, German, every language you have commentaries of Tanya, and there's not a line that goes by without being explained. It's really within the grasp of everybody. Okay, so one time Rabbi Weinberg, he was very close to a certain family in Brazil that were enormous supporters of the yeshiva. He used to travel to Brazil a few times a year, and there was a person there who was an enormous supporter. You're talking perhaps millions of dollars a year. Okay, and he gets a call. Rabbi Weinberg gets a call. It's 11 o'clock at night. Okay, and he says that his daughter is is expecting, and she's in the emergency room. Okay, and she's in the room, and the doctors want to operate. Okay, and he doesn't know what to do. Should they operate or not? Okay, there's some problem with the birth. Should they operate or not? They want them to sign a paper that they're okay. Well, and they want a bracha from the Rebbe. Okay, well they want an advice from the Rebbe, and Rabbi Weinberg didn't know what to do because it was 11 o'clock at night. The secretaries had already gone home. Right? I don't know what year it was exactly, He went to 770 and he doesn't, what is he going to do? He's not going to go. He saw the light on in the Rebbe's room. The light was on the Rebbe's room. That meant that the Rebbe was there. Okay. And so he's thinking, what can I do? I'm not going to, he was a chassid. Chassid is a humble, he saw the Rebbe as like a king. I'm not going to knock on the Rebbe's door and disturb him. What can I do? And he thought for a minute and said, you know what? I'm going to slip the note under the door. Okay. And if the Rebbe sees it, he sees it. And if he wants to answer, he'll answer. So he slipped the note under the door, okay, and in fact, a few minutes later, the Rebbe opened the door and gave him a bracha. Later on that night, Rabbi Weinberg said, "Oh my gosh, what did I do? I made the Rebbe bend over." It sounds so silly. The truth is, even to me, it sounded silly the first time I heard the story. Made the Rebbe bend over. Bending over is part of life, okay? Bending over, you pick up something. But Rabbi Weinberg, he said, I made the Rebbe bend over. I took the exalted Rebbe and I made him bend over. I lowered him to pick up my note. That's such audacity. I should never have done it. I should have knocked on the door. I should have figured out some way to do it. But to make the Rebbe bend over on an archetypal level, the king, and I make him bend over, it's so tragic. And so he wrote a long letter asking the Rebbe for an apology, okay, and he got immediately an answer back. First, the Rebbe said not to forget about it. It's nothing to worry about. Of course, it wasn't nothing negative. And then he said, and as to make his point, the Rebbe said that his entire life is what? About lifting things up. It's not that Rabbi Weinberg made him
Okay. Rabbi Leiter is frozen.
Yeah, he's also frozen for me.
Yeah, hopefully Rabbi Leiter will come back. Oh, here he is. Unmute yourself. Shaul, unmute yourself.
got it. Okay. All right, but still, where's Reba? Where's the text? Can anybody see the text? This is
Nope, but it's still recording.
yeah, but I want to start teaching. You know what? Each of you is an important person. I can't believe it that we're having this trouble here. 1 second. 1 second.
It says you started screen sharing.
Oh, you started screen sharing, Shaul.
I didn't.
There it
is.
Text is back.
I didn't do anything. Come on, let's go before anything else happens. Chas v'sholom. Okay.
First, finish the story. Tell him what the Rebbe said, that it's his purpose in life.
No, the whole thing of everything that we've been studying together as a group for the last weeks, right? It's how you look at something. The Rebbe didn't. Rabbi Weinberg thought that he made the Rebbe lower himself. The Rebbe said no, that his whole purpose is the opposite, is to lift things up. The only reason why we go down is to lift something up, to transform it from negative to positive. And that's exactly what happened here. The Rebbe said, you helped me fulfill my purpose. My purpose is to lift things up. And by you giving me this letter, I lifted her up. And in the end, they told them not to operate, and the baby came out healthy. Baruch Hashem was a healthy baby, and everything was perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
so Beseder. So now and we're going to see exactly that point. 1 second. We're going to see exactly that point. How do I? Just 1 second. It helps me. 1 second. I don't know how to do it. All right, I can't see anybody. That's all right, I guess. Well, anybody, since I can't see everybody, I just want to say one time, welcome to everybody. Again, let's see. Look at all these people, Baruch Hashem. Okay, Holly and Liba and can't even see the name there. Somebody else, and Valerio and Shana, Dax, welcome, and Dara, and Liseta, and Simone, Miriam, a lot of new people that I haven't met before, and Hilam, Hilam's back, and Dennis, Baruch Hashem, and Giti, thank you, Giti. You're for my whole screen, Giti, and Moshe. Okay.
We just lost the text, so.
Oh no. All right, let's get started. We're gonna start. Okay, I'm sorry. Anybody has a Keter Shem Tov? We're in the 75. It's ridiculous. All right, let me.
Just start teaching. We listen to you more than we look anyway.
Okay, Baal Shem Tov. It's a very long text this time, but we're gonna go fast. Okay, wait. Okay, it says how can the Baal Shem Tov is asking people to pray for their enemies. Now I want to say that you don't find this idea of praying for your enemies in the standard Jewish tradition. You actually do find it in by not Jewish people. Right, that there's an idea of praying for your enemies. Okay, and the idea there, lahavdil elef havdol, is to make a separate 1,000 separations between Judaism and not Judaism. But the idea there is that a person should be a person who hates you, your enemy. He's making a mistake, okay, and so you pray for him to realize his mistake. That's the idea there. The Baal Shem Tov was saying something completely. Giti, you're staring me in the face. I can't even. It's hard for me. I haven't seen you for 2 years, and you're like bigger than life.
I'm all over.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm gonna get over it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do this for you. Okay.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, to say that. So he says. So the question is, how do you pray for an enemy? How do you do it? Not how do you do it, like what's the action? How is it possible to pray for a person that you know that hates you? Okay, so truth is, we are on 75. 18, which was like in the first couple of weeks that we started to teach it, but the Baal Shem Tov speaks about it there also. Okay, and you know what? We'll discuss that. He gives a different idea there. We're going to discuss it as we go along. So let's look inside. It says how do you pray for a person that you for your enemy? Shevi Pot Sadik V'Kam. It says in Mishlei. Mishlei is a book of Proverbs. It's the book by King Solomon. It says Shevi Pot Sadik V'Kam. 7 times a tzaddik falls and rises. All right. Very much what we said. Okay, we're going to continue what we said about the Rebbe in a minute. 7 times a tzaddik falls 7 times and rises, and then the verse continues, and an evil person falls, and that's it. Okay, when an evil person falls, he goes lower and lower and lower, be'er shachas mamash, until the depth of the depths, and he connects himself with tragic things. A tzaddik falls. Why? He falls in order to rise up again, right? To elevate the things around him. He goes down in order to elevate. By the way, this is last week's. I don't know if you've all noticed, but very often by divine providence, what we speak about in the Baal Shem Tov is what was in the context of the portion of the week from yesterday. We just read the Torah yesterday. It was Parshas Chukas. Parshas Chukas begins by speaking about how there was a certain type. There's a concept called spiritual impurity. It's like anti-life, right? There's life and there's anti-life. Impurity is anti-life, okay? And the worst impurity was if a person would touch a dead body or would be touched by a person who touched a dead body. The only way to come out of that impurity, some impurities you just wash your hands, some impurities you have to go to a mikveh, there were all different ways to get out of being impure. The only way to get out of being impure was to be sprinkled with water that had mixed in it, the ash of a red heifer. Now, the red heifer had all these rules. It couldn't have even 2 black hairs together in one place. It couldn't have ever been under a yoke, right? It had to be a year old. Okay, those were the conditions, right? And that was the only way to take away from a person the impurity of death. The very interesting thing about it was that the person who would actually prepare the ash of the heifer, he himself would become impure. That was an anomaly. That wasn't true of any other offering or anything connected to an offering. Never was the person who prepared the offering because himself became impure, and that was the case of preparing the ash of the red heifer. Okay, and so there are many teachings about it. Okay, it's one of the ideas. It's the chok. It's the classic idea, something that the Torah doesn't explain. But by Hasidim, this is what they say, right? That sometimes, to just like the person who prepared the ash, that would enable others to become purified, he himself became impure. The teaching there it's a very delicate understanding. Sometimes, to help somebody else, we have to actually go down to their level. It's not saying, God forbid, and I want to say all of you, the ones that I know better, the people that I know not so well, okay, I want to say, be clear. The Torah is not suggesting that to help somebody else, a person should ever contaminate themselves, should go against the laws of the Torah. That's forbidden. That's absolutely forbidden. You don't do a sin to accomplish a positive commandment. Okay. On the other hand, it is required sometimes to help somebody else that we might have to go to their level. We might have to be in a situation that's not comfortable for us. But when does life begin? When you leave your comfort zone. Okay, that sometimes that is, sometimes it just happened to me today. Sometimes a person just needs to speak, right? And you're sitting there, you're giving up time you would have used for something crucially important. Maybe somebody's waiting for you. Maybe there's something you need to accomplish. You have other obligations. And yet sometimes you just see this person, right? To open them up, you need to give them simply your time. Okay, and sometimes giving just your time is the hardest thing in the entire world. That's the idea of the red heifer, that the person who prepared the ash to help other people become purified, they themselves became impure. Okay, and the same thing with this idea, Shevi Yipol Tzadik. That's what I guess you still don't see the text. Okay, so the verse is a verse from Mishlei, the 24th chapter of Mishlei, the 17th verse. It says Shevi Yipol Tzadik. So the simple explanation is that it's, like we said, that sometimes a tzaddik falls, but he falls and it's only to learn from the falling, and he rises again. No, the Baal Shem Tov says don't read it that way. Read it like this: Shevi Yipol Tzadik Sekam, 7 are the fallings of the tzaddik, and he will rise. What does it mean to say? There's this idea in Kabbalah. Again, we've spoken about it before, and think about the 10 sfirot. Just it says, "Mi b'sarei echser l'ka." From my flesh, I'll understand divinity. Just the way that a person has a head, intellect, a heart, emotions, and they express itself in action. So also, that's the way that God relates to the world, through intellect, emotion, and actions. Okay, and there are 7 emotions. Okay, and they're called, this. We're going to say them later, but you've heard me speak about it, everybody, before. There are 7 levels of emotion: 3 primary emotions: kindness, severity, and compassion; 3 secondary emotions: netzach, hod, yesod. Netzach is eternity or endurance. Hod is admission. Yesod is foundation, and then malchus, kingship. Okay, these are the things we're going to discuss it more in this context in a few minutes. Okay, so he says that don't read it that the tzaddik falls 7 times. Read it that the Shevi Yipol, that the divine attributes, the 7 divine attributes, right? Shevi Yipol tzaddik v'kam, that these divine attributes fall into the space of the tzaddik. For what reason? To elevate them. Okay, and he's talking about each of us. He's talking about the challenges that each person finds in their life. Where are they coming from? What's their purpose? How do we understand these challenges? And he's going to explain. He says, Rod Saloimar, okay, it's what it means to say that the Zion Sphirot, the 7 midot, what's called the 7 emotional attributes, the 7 ways that a person expresses himself. So, right, sometimes first you love somebody, and then you have to, if you just love somebody, it's not so good. You have to hold back on the love. That's severity. And compassion, and tiferet is compassion, right? Is mixing that giving and holding back. And okay, so there are 7 and the 3 secondary attributes. One is endurance, is to continue the flow, and the other is admission, is to hold back, to appropriately hold back what the receiver can't take. And the idea of Yesod, the 6th one, is this connection between the giver and the receiver. And Malchus is actually the action of giving over to the other. Okay, so in Bekitzer, okay, so then in a short way. So that's what he says. He says, Bezayin spheres. And please, since you don't have a text, if you have a question, ask me. The Baal Shem Tov is saying, what does it mean? What does it mean that 7 times will fall the tzaddik and rise? That the 7 attributes, sparks will fall into the 7 attributes, the environment around the tzaddik, and it's his job to elevate them. He's going to explain. He says, Nizgalgel Naran Shalo. They fall into his Naran. What is Naran? Naran is Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Right, 2 very difficult. These are 2 not difficult at all, but they're 2 concepts that we've mentioned before. I'm going to say it again. God expresses his energy in the world through 10 attributes: intellect, and 3 levels of intellect and 7 levels of emotion. That's how God, the infinite, expresses himself in the world. And we, each person, has those 10 aspects in them. Okay, and so we can understand how God relates to the world by understanding ourselves. That's the idea of the 10 Sefirot. In the context of the 10 Sefirot, we also have 5 levels of our soul. There are 2 levels in the heavens. The highest level is called Yechida, which is in heaven all the time. The connecting part of the soul in heaven to the part of the soul in the body is called Chaya, for life. And there are 3 parts in the body, and you've all heard the words before: Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. And Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama go on our 3 aspects of action is Nefesh, and Ruach is speech, and Neshama is thought. Okay, so we take these different intellectual and emotional attributes and we express them in our soul through our actions, our speech, and our thinking. Okay, and that's what he says. I wish you could see the text, but he says again, I'm just reading the words. The Baal Shem Tov is saying that the 7 Sfirot, Galgel, they were they were rolled into, they were expressed in the 3 levels of our soul. The levels of action, this is the lowest level, the most materialistic level. Speech is more refined, it's above, and thought is the most refined. Okay, now he's going to continue. Dahainu. So what's nefesh in a person? Okay, nefesh in a person is in terms of how we relate to our environment. Those are our slaves, our animals. It could be our machines. It could be all of the literally physical things in the world that we don't have any intimate contact with them at all. Okay.
Like a car, for example.
Like a car. A car is part of nefesh. Thank you very much. Okay, a mixer is a part of. I'm thinking about my kitchen or coffee maker. Okay, all the things that we have a relationship with, but not an intimate relationship with them. Okay, that's the level of nefesh. Okay, and in terms of the soul, it's our motor activities. Okay, physical activities. Okay. Now, continue. What's ruach then? Okay, so ruach is speech. So in Kabbalah, and in general, and in particular in teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, okay, ruach goes on a person's wife. Now, if you remember a few weeks ago, we spoke about it, that there's a certain aspect of intimacy, of a union of a person with God when a person says Torah. When a person says Torah, my lips are saying words of Torah. Words of Torah is God's will and wisdom. God is one unified reality. God's will and wisdom is actually God. It's not part of God, it's God. His will and wisdom is God. Okay, God's will and wisdom is part of him, is him. When I speak words of Torah or prayer, I'm literally making a union between me and the Almighty. Okay, and so therefore, in our lives, the persons that we have we unite with is our wives. Okay, and so therefore, a wife is connected to the idea of speech. Okay, is speech. That's one level. He's going to continue though. Don't. Okay, so he says. So the first thing, the level of remember we said that the purpose of a tzaddik is to elevate the sparks that fall in his surroundings. And with three different types of sparks. There's sparks of the physical things around us, our cars, our machines, our servants, animals, if you're living in an agrarian society. Okay, that's the level of nefesh. Okay, and then ruach is a person's wife. That a much higher level of intimacy, right? And he says, Divug is a union. The union of the mouth is called ishtoi, just the way that a person is united with Hashem. Okay, so then we also have a zig with a wife. By the way, you can you can connect with a spouse, a significant other, not just through intimacy, through speaking also. It can also be a way to be intimate with a person. Okay, so it's not just talking about physical intimacy. Okay, right? And the Baal Shem Tov explains you have the verse that speaks about Adam and Eve in the Torah, and it says that Adam didn't have a mate. Every other animal was created male and female. Adam didn't have a mate, and so God was going to create a mate for Adam. And the verse says, "Ezer Kenegdai," that she was going to be. It's very beautiful. I'm sure everybody's as familiar, and if you're not familiar, you should be familiar to look in the first chapter of Bereshit. It describes there the second chapter of Bereshit describes there the creation of man and woman. It says a woman is an ezer, a helpmate, kenegdoi, against him. Now, kenegdo could also mean in parallel to him, but that's already a stretch. It really says a helpmeet against them. So what does that mean, a helpmeet against them? So the Talmud says what it says in the text here. I guess we're not going to get the text back so fast. It says zocha ezer. If a person merits, your spouse is your helpmate, and if you don't merit, she's your enemy. She's kenegdo. Okay, that's what it means, that ezer kenegdo. Okay, so he's going to use that same context here. He says that because the hainu that we mean, and all the husbands listen. Okay, right? The hainu shebegam b'diburo, that if a person pagam is a blemish. A pagam is also a some kind of no, pagam is a defect. If a person has a defect in their speech, okay, pagam shebedibur kagon lashon, or if like a person speaks negatively, and it's something that's not even connected to their spouse. If a person doesn't use their speech in the highest level, they might lose their temper, or they might speak negatively about others, or whatever. They use their speech in a negative way, right? Nasa mimenu, that he could make his wife into an enemy. Okay, instead of a helper, she becomes an enemy. And similarly with the people in his surrounding him. It says Nasa Mimenu, he from his negative speech, Nasa Mimenu, son of Hamidabrim Alav, that if a person doesn't speak properly, not only will his wife stop being his helpmate, even people around him will become his enemies. Son of Hamidabrim Alav, people that will speak poorly about him. If he speaks poorly about others, other people will speak poorly about him. Like it says, what goes around comes around. Now, and what about the third thing? So we spoke about our machines, our servants, our animals, and he's going to say in a minute he's going to describe that in a minute. For some reason, it's pushed off. We'll see. And about when a person's speech is inappropriate, he can turn his wife against him, God forbid, or he makes enemies for him, just like he spoke poorly about others. Others will speak poorly about him. Okay. Upagam shebamoach. What happens when a person has a defect in the way that they think? Okay. B'machshava, in his thought. Garam sheyesh lo tsar mibanav. He has pain from his children. Pain from his children. And why is that? Because we say that the semen that merges with the egg of our spouse to create children, that semen begins in the brain. It begins in the brain and it travels down the spine, right? And it becomes semen to connect with our spouses, with the egg of our spouse, and to create the child. Okay, so we said that he's saying that when a person, what happens when a person experiences difficulties? Let's just finish. So he's going to say it inside. Ubenefesh, and we're talking about going back to the first level. Our machines, our servants, our animals. Ubenefesh, gamkein, impagam b'maisa. If a person had a defect in his actions, beuvda, and his work life, garam lotzar me'avoda v'behem tov. He's causing tsar, pain. He's going to have difficulty with his servants and his behemoths. So let's go back. He's saying that this is totally negative our intuition. When a person has trouble with his machines, with his servants, with his material life, the non-intimate parts of his life, right? Then a person and his work, whatever his way he makes a living, he has to realize that it's coming from some defect in his actions. And that when a person has problems, God forbid, no one should have problems with their wife or the people in their surroundings. It's because a person has a problem with their speech. Wow. And when a person has a problem with their child, it's because they have some type of a defect in their thoughts. Okay, and that if we want to fix those things, we have to look into ourselves and to correct the defects in ourselves. Okay, and that's what he says here. That says upagam b'maisav okay. Okay, and we said that if a person has a defect in his actions, his speech, or his thoughts, it causes negative relationships in our material life with our spouses or the people in our immediate surroundings, or God forbid, even with our children. Okay. It says Ubakol Spherais, he's continuing. So really, it's not so complicated. In general, on the more subtle areas, we have the 7 attributes, right? A person has a problem with their aspect of chesed. They're too giving, they're too giving. Okay, and they have to figure out how to hold back a little bit. Okay, all right. Or what about with our severity? Gavura. A person holds back too much. They have to loosen up. And Tiferet is about compassion. Is about what do you call it when you can identify with another person's issues, when it's not only about me all the time. Okay, and Netzach is about endurance, is about going the whole mile, not giving up. Okay, that's and sometimes we give up too much, right? And then Hod is about admission, right? That even when I'm already clear that I have to give over, that it says Netzach Hod Yisod, Netzach, Chesed Gevurah Tiferes is about deciding to give. Right? Then I've already decided to give. Hod is how much to give, how much. Okay, right? And Yisod is that connection with our external environment. Okay, so those are. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy at all. Okay, but the Baal Shem Tov was saying that there's different levels, right? Sometimes it's obvious to us where there's the flaw. Okay, and I just heard a story about there was a
Excuse me, Rabbi, kindly. Could you hold just for a second, kindly? When you talk about difficulty with the children, for example, do you think in certain cases this difficulty could even manifest itself to like physical disability, or is it just strained relationships? I hope you got my question.
I got it exactly. 1 second. Okay, so in here, the Baal Shem Tov, in what we're learning about now, it's speaking about relationships, about something that's at least on an obvious level, that's correctable. Okay, what happens if a child has a disability? Okay, certainly there are some children with disabilities that give their parents incredible pleasure, right? And they lead fulfilling lives. And there are some children with disabilities that they're held back from fulfilling their potential. Every child is different, okay? In broadest terms, what we're studying about here is speaking about something that's not necessarily a disability. You'll see in a minute. He's when he speaks, because we're going to speak about. Remember, we started by talking about praying for your enemies. Okay, so there, he's going to explain that we're going to do it inside, but he's going to explain that when you pray for your enemies, it's actually part of yourself in your enemy. The enemy that's happening to them because it's part of you. That's what we've been saying. It's part of you and them. Okay, and when you fix that thing in yourself, when you pray for them, we said where do enemies come from? From inappropriate speech. So when you use your speech in the best possible way, when you pray for them, that's so counterintuitive. Instead of haranguing them, instead of cursing them, instead of praying that they should, God forbid, something negative happen. No, we pray for them that that their lives should be transformed. When we do that, when we use speech in a positive way, that it takes out their negative energy. Okay, and in a similar way with the other two levels, with our material life and our children. Okay, and I have a child that has a disability. And but that's why I stopped to think when you asked me. So I'm saying yes and no. Even a child with a disability can give the person give the parent an enormous amount of pleasure. Even a child with a disability can fulfill their potential, whatever their potential is, and the parent can help them do that. Okay, sometimes even that is blocked from the child. So he's saying, the Baal Shem Tov is saying that from the person fulfilling their potential, their full potential, to the fullest potential that they have, depending on any difficulties that they might experience, right? That we have to look into ourselves. If God gave us that child, that means we have the ability to help them to fulfill their mission in the best possible way. And I say it from experience that it's not always easy, not easy at all. And sometimes it's heartbreaking. But but that's at least where we start. Okay. I hope I answered you a little bit. I hope. Hey. Okay.
You have. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
I'm okay. Should only be good news. We should all have a lot of nachas from our children. Okay, so let's look back inside. No, guys. He says, okay, so we said there's sometimes when we have these difficulties in our surroundings, again, our material surroundings, our wives and the people around us, and our children. Okay, so sometimes sometimes it's something small. Sometimes it's something easily correctable. So the Baal Shem Tov is saying those are the first 6 sfirot: Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, because those are the interface between spiritual and physical. They exist as much in the spiritual world as they exist in the physical world. But what about the last sfirah, Malchus? Malchus is this physical world. This makes me crazy world. This world where you bang your head against the wall and nothing gives. That world that we exist in. Okay, so that's what he says. All the other 6 attributes, it's a question of loving and giving, or discipline and severity, or compassion, or endurance, or admission, or connection. Those are all terms. They're even terms in psychology. You can look for a path out of the maze. Okay, but what happens sometimes? The last sphira, things that fall into the lowest level. Malchus is action. So in that lowest level of action, concrete things, okay, Sfira Shvi, so Malchus, there you have not just spiritual forces, you have physical forces, you have the Yenika of the Chitzonim, literally forces of evil are sucking, that's the expression that's used, are sucking on the holiness in there, and they're taking their strength from it, and sometimes things that things that ridiculous things can happen, because why? Because it's this mixture of evil and good together. Okay, that's uniquest a klipos, the sucking of the shells, the things that hide from holiness, and kasha la'alois. It's very difficult. Okay, that a person has to realize that there's going to be things that are very, very difficult to transform. Right. 1 second. Okay. So that was in general. Okay, and this again, the summary is that a person has to realize that often that it says in Pirkei Avos, know what's above you. A person has to know that there's a God that sees and that hears, and everything is written down in a book. That's the pshat. But also we have to know that what's above is from us. What happens in our surroundings, we created it. It's sometimes it's defects or lack of sensitivity of things in our life, and if we correct those things in our life, and that's, I'm going to tell a story about that now, we can change that thing. There was it's a story about a chassid. He was in Venezuela, and he had a synagogue in a certain town there, and he was already there for years, and a particular man that he wasn't very close to, right, would come in every day for the daily prayers without a head covering. Okay, and he would take his head covering out from his bag that he held, his talit, his prayer shawl, and his tefillin, and he put the kippah on his head. And it was the rabbi said to himself, it just bothered him because it's doing it for years. For years he would come in. He didn't have the respect for the synagogue to put his head covering on before he came in. And he knew that he's supposed to put the head covering. He's the award for the entire prayer service. And why does he wait? And it bothered this person, this shliach, so much, but he didn't really have a relationship with him to say anything to him or to ask anybody to speak to him. And then one day he realized, why is it bothering me? Maybe I have some issue with the sanctity of the synagogue. Maybe that's what's bothering me. Maybe I'm really identifying with that thing in him, and that's what resonates in me. And he looked into himself and he found a juk, an impropriety, an imbalance in his own thinking, and he fixed it. He changed it, right? He changed something about his own way of relating to holiness, and something unbelievable happened. A couple of days later, the person started putting on his kippah before he came into synagogue. Even before saying, it sounds, you say, oh, Rabbi Leiter is telling his story. Oh, I'm telling you. The point is, I think the reason those stories are important is because if you think about it, if when we work on ourselves, when we perceive the things around us as a reflection of what's going on in ourselves, when we work on that thing in ourselves, it's so interesting that our attitude and our perception and even the reality of what's going on around us changes. That's what I want to say. And I'm challenging everyone to look at that into your lives and to see if that's the case. Okay. Anyway, so back inside. So because we still have, come on. It says, this is so ridiculous that you don't have a text. I'm going to try to translate the text, and I'm going to send it to I'm going to put it out on the WhatsApp group for next week.
So what's the difference between the explanation that he gave before about nefesh and the addition of the explanation for malchus? I mean, nefesh is also action, no? Nefesh is
So there's things that fall in our nefesh life, right? Our machines, our animals, our servants. Okay, but they're easy to fix. Okay, they're easy to fix. They're not so complicated. Okay, it's a good question, Kiti, right? But they're not so complicated. A person not so complicated in the sense that it's fixable. Somebody once told me, Rabbi Leiter, you have to smile more when you come into ascent. You look so serious. People are afraid of you. All right, so I started smiling when I came into ascent. Okay, that's easy. What happens when there was an employee, okay, and two employees got into a fight, and his boss and this one, and it becomes complicated, and this person's not willing to give in, it's going to change. You know what? It's not just involved. It's not just a simple transaction. Smiling. It's the person has himself a certain defect in his character, and meaning that there's a unika from the klippas. There's the unholy forces are drawing on him, right? It's mamish embedded in his physical world, and it's so much more complicated to take it. You have to first help that person to change their defect. You have to work on their surroundings in a sense. It becomes, do you hear me, Giti? Right? This simple.
Yeah. So the difference is just the level of hardship in transforming it.
It's called malchus of malchus, right? Or nefesh of malchus. It's bullshit. It's stuck there. Okay. All right. That's talking about malchus. Okay. And he's sharing with us that sometimes it is more complicated, okay, and that it's more kav. You have to, take it on a few different levels, and you have to literally, untangle all of the connecting dots there, and to free it up. Okay, but it's possible. It's possible.
Okay.
And how does it be possible? When you look first at yourself. Again, the hashgacha pratis, the divine providence of this difficulty outside of us, right, is because it's to make me look inside. It's not my job to change them. My job to change myself. And when I change myself, I change the world around me automatically. And that's what he's going to continue. Nimsa, so it comes out, what about these enemies? We have an enemy, a person giving me a hard time. We have to pray for our enemies, right? Shabolo, how did this happen that I have an enemy? Why would I have an enemy? I'm such a nice guy. I wouldn't kill a fly. I don't step on ants. Okay. And all of a sudden this guy is out to get me. Okay. It says, it came from my pagam and my dibur, something in my speech, right? That tzorach l'taknam. We have to transform it. Taknam is to fix it, right? Ula aloisam, and to elevate it. We have to work on our speech. Okay. Al yedei dibur, and how do we do that? so he's saying very much Dibur Tefillah. Again, it's first of all, it's Dibur in general, how we speak to our spouses, how we speak to the people around us, how we speak. But he says the highest level of speaking is in prayer. Okay, and why prayer? It says again, the mitzvah of prayer is to pray when you understand the words. Understand the words has a few different levels. The words are in Hebrew, but to understand the words. Oh, 1 second. Okay, I don't know. Oh, fine. Even my machine is not cooperating with me. My iPad is about to die, but we have 10%, so I think we're going to be able to finish.
Tefillah you're talking about.
Right. Okay. Oh, tefillah. Right. That we're talking about again. If a person prays, again, we're talking. I'm looking. I can't see everybody, but we're talking about all different levels. Okay. I'm going to talk about myself for a minute. Right. It takes me the same amount of time to pray, to say the words of the prayer without thinking about them, as to think about them. The only difference is that thinking about them requires concentration. Okay, and when my mouth says the words of prayer, and I concentrate on the words of prayer, and I identify with the words of prayer, and I accept them as part of me, as an expression of my Jewishness, of my holiness, of my being a merkava, a chariot for merkava of the Holy One, right? And that my words, like we said before, create a union with divinity. That speech changes the person. You're not the same person. It's not so easy to speak inappropriate words after that. Okay, and whether a person takes 10 minutes to daven or an hour and a half to daven, if they'll take the prayer, these holy words that were given to us by thousands of years of Jewish tradition and fine honed by Kabbalists to literally be a vehicle to connect me to God, if I speak those words with sincerity and with understanding, and I identify with them, it changes the way that I speak also in the mundane world. Okay, and so that's what he's saying, that the way to fix both the relationship with my spouse and the relationship with my enemies is by fixing the way that I pray. Okay, al yedei dibur tefillah, right? Okay, ubeimlo, and if I don't do it, and what happens? Instead of trying to identify the problem in myself, I say I'm gonna forget what we taught now. I forget what we spoke about. I'm gonna say this guy is a scoundrel. This person is just filled with negative things, and I'm just gonna give him a hard time. Okay, then what happens? Nasi Yeser Saina. He becomes even more of an enemy, right? Ayadei obvious v'chumayis through because you know what? Let's take an example. What happens if there's a spark, right? You're given an apple to eat, and you make the blessing on the apple, and you eat the apple with intention. It's not that I just want a low-calorie snack to satisfy my sweet tooth instead of eating a chocolate bar. I actually want to eat the apple to give me extra strength to be able to serve God, to learn more Torah, to daven in a proper way. I'm eating it for the highest spiritual purpose. Then I'm taking there's the physical apple, there's also the spark in the apple, and I'm elevating it. I'm sending it, I'm catapulting it back up to heaven. Okay, what happens if I don't do that? What happens if I take that same apple and I just, let's talk about an apple. Let's talk about a
custard donut.
That's right. I was thinking of an eclair. I haven't had an eclair since 1967. Right. But an eclair, this thing with this crust with cream inside and chocolate and stuff on the outside. Eclair.
That's exactly right.
Right. Okay. And you eat it because because somebody made you angry and you, just give me this, right? What happens to the spark in that eclair? It's the same spark as the apple, right? But depending on how you eat it, that spark becomes so much more hidden, right? It becomes part of our flesh. It could come out in our waste products. It's so much more difficult to elevate that spark then. Okay, it's 100 times more work. And that's what he's saying here also. If a person ignores the advice that Baal Shem Tov is giving, if we don't look into ourselves for the problem, if we don't try to fix our speech and pray, and we see how it transforms the way that I relate to my surroundings, if we don't do that, what happens? We bury those sparks more deeply into the material world. Nase Yosef son, and become even more haters. Avid, because of the av means thick, right? And chumius and the materiality, right? That I put them more into exile. Okay, lekach gam. This is what it says. Anosh letzadik lo tov. It says a tzaddik is made to bless. He's not made to punish others. Okay, we have to realize that's the code word, right? When we see something negative somebody else, it's not because we're supposed to give them a hard time, to chastise them. Okay, it's Moses himself was punished that he couldn't go into Israel because he called the Jewish people rebellious. Okay, because you're supposed to talk about a person's at the worst their negative actions, but not about the person. Person is negative, never negative. The person has negative actions. Okay, so he said that a tzaddik gam. These are the words gam enosh tzaddik lo tov. A tzaddik is not supposed to punish. He's supposed to bless. He's supposed to pray for people. He's supposed to help people to transform themselves. Okay, so that's to remind us that when you see a negative trait in somebody else, not to go after them, is to look into ourselves, right? And why? And he says, the Baal Shem Tov says, "Enosh, anosh letzaddik lotov." Punishment for a tzaddik is not good. A tzaddik shouldn't punish anybody. But why? Why should you not punish the? Why should we not punish the people in our surroundings, our enemies, the people that are giving us a hard time? Why? Because ruchoy shel tzaddik asam. Because that our spirit is in them. It's the sparks from me that are in them. And I was going to say before, in other words, it's one way to see it is that it's parts of my defective character traits that I'm experiencing in that other person. Okay, but there's another more, maybe slightly more refined level. We know that by Abraham had two children. One was Isaac, but the other was Ishmael. Ishmael was an evil person. Isaac was a pure person. Okay, we know that Isaac had two sons. One was Jacob. The other was Esau. Jacob was a pure person. Esau was a negative person. We see even in the highest righteous people, Abraham and Isaac were the forefathers, two of the three forefathers, and even they, in their purification of themselves to reach the 12 tribes, the sons of Jacob, they had to split off their negative traits. Okay, so there's one level to see it, that an evil person is literally my negative traits. It's that I have to litaken, to repair. But it could also be, like we said, just like Abraham had two sons. It could be the negative parts of my character that I already did fix, but still, either positive or negative, those my enemies are still something that evolved from me, and so I have to fix myself in order to be able to help them. Okay.
Oh, that's like the question of why, when you talk Lashon Hara, three people are at fault: the one who speaks, the one who listens, and also the one who's spoken about. Why the one who's spoken about? Because that's reason.
No, I don't know if everybody understands. It's a very famous idea. When you speak negatively about somebody else, right? So they say, what do you think? You think, okay, you're doing damage to the other person. And in fact, that's the law. The law is, God forbid, if a person spoke even the truth, but negatively about somebody else, you have to go and ask them for an apology, right? You have to tell them what you said and ask for an apology, okay? And ask them to forgive you, okay? But in Chassidut, it says the fact is that 3 people are you're murdering 3 people, right? You're murdering yourself, because like we just said, right, that when you speak badly about somebody else, you're actually creating and strengthening your enemies. You're making them stronger. Okay, so you're doing yourself damage. That's number 1. You're doing the person you spoke about obviously damage. You're saying negative things about them, right? But even the person that hears you say the things, even they become part of this whole. You're killing them also because they're of the sin that they're committing by listening to you.
I think it's the opposite, Shaul. I think the one that speaks and hears, they're both at fault. And the one who you speak about, why is he at fault? He's only at fault because negative speech brings out negativity in the one you're speaking about as well.
No, say that, but the point, what it said, 100%. I thought that's what I said. But say that, but it's about you're killing 3 people. That's the point. 3 people are being damaged, not just
Right.
it's not just the speaker or the listener, even the person that's being spoken about. Okay, and that's all here. We again to connect it to what we're saying now. When you see a negative fault in somebody, you're supposed to understand that it's in yourself, okay, and not in the other person. And if you'll fix what's in yourself, then that negative thing about the other person, it might go away. Might go away. It will go away, or we'll perceive it in a different way. Okay, we still have a few.
Does this illegitimize the Baal Shem and the Baal Shem Tov and even the Rebbe himself, because they didn't think negatively about their enemy, but in the Baal Shem's time, Russia was doing the same thing they were doing in the Baal Shem Tov's time, and 200 years after the Baal Shem Tov passed away, Russia was still doing the same negative things to the Jews. So how does this help? And even the Rebbe, the community around him, since his initiation, and
okay,
you're
talking about again. I feel I next week I'm going to have another computer. My computer will be fixed, and I'll be able to. Everybody will have the text. I want to say that it said very clearly that it said very clearly that I have 5%, and we're going to, and we have to finish. It said in your Saviva. What's when you look at the macro situation of the world, and Russia is an enemy to the Jewish people. By the way, now it's it's not so bad as it was, but or there are Iran. Okay, it's not just what the Baal Shem is talking about. He's talking about people in our Saviva, people that we have. Remember, we're talking about non-intimate relationships and intimate relationships. Okay, I can't change what's going on in a different country. That has to do with on a macro level. Okay, that's the idea of. It says in the Haggadah that they came door after door, generation after generation. They tried to exterminate. They weren't successful. This is something about the Jewish people and their destiny. The destiny of Jewish people that we're always facing obstacles, and we always come up on top, like the olive, that only when you press it does the olive oil, the good stuff, come out, right? That's part of our reality. How do we accomplish our destiny, Moshe? By looking into ourselves instead of other people, by looking into ourselves and looking for ourselves and perfecting ourselves, and not looking to other people for fault. Okay, it's two different parallels. Okay, I hope that was clear. Come on, let's try to finish, guys, before my battery dies.
Yeah, rebellion sounds negative to me, but that's the way to do it.
Okay,
We change the world by changing ourselves one step at a time.
100%. And you know what? And you always have the divine providence of the individual against the divine providence of the world, right? One person it will have a good life. One person will escape difficulty. One person will be able to elevate the things around him, and another person will get stuck and trip. And okay, it has to do with looking into yourself, and then you have to leave the rest to God. Okay, let's look inside quickly. Okay. One say about okay. Okay, why do we have to be careful? Because the negativity we see is me. It's me. It's rucho. It's tzaddik atzmo. It's tzaddik. That's what we have to pray. Not only to pray properly, that's the tikkun, the repairing of our speech. We have to pray for them, even a higher level. Al son of letaknam aloisam, to repair them and to elevate them, to help them to do tshuva. Because why? Because al yedei hatfila, that when you pray in a proper way, and you even more than that pray for them, nimta peshorsho, you transform the evil person, that evil situation, like we've spoken about many times before. You transform it at its core, right? Peshorsho, at its source, umotzim rucho, and you take out rucho, you take out that negative spark that I actually implanted in them. You take it out, okay, and then they can transform themselves. And all the negative that's still there just evaporate. Kalim, they end. They wrap them up by themselves, right? It's another line from Mishlei. It says that the wise person should hear, and he should Yosef Lekach, he should work on it. He should add from his own experiences and transform the world around him. Okay, and then he's going to bring he's going to bring an example from Moses. It's very interesting. Why did Moses become the leader of the Jewish people? He started out with sheep, right? And then he went to people. Think about it. Wow, sheep is like animals, right? Is our nefesh level, the first level, and people is our
ruach.
Our ruach, our speech level. And then Moses was the ultimate. When he passed away, he reached the 50th level of being of understanding, of thought level. So that's what he's going to say. He's going to say, we see this whole transformation by Moses. This is the whole advantage of Moses, our teacher. All of us, his peace be upon him. That he worked his whole life to repair. But repairing on the highest level, to constantly improve his level of speech. First, he started with animals, and he was compassionate with animals, and because he fixed the material level of his life, those same sparks that were in the speech, they became the Jewish people who were his students. 2 million students were the sparks that were in the sheep, became his students. Shenosim them a Torah, that he gave them the Torah, right? The lamad, and he taught them, right? And he elevated them on not just to be from his enemies to be his friends, but he brought them to a level of machshava, right? They became like his children. And he says that in the commentary here. He says they became like his children, right? To elevate them to the highest level possible. Okay, and so he's saying that that's possible for each person, right? We have to, again, if our car doesn't start, you got to get a mechanic and get it fixed, no question. But you have to ask yourself, why did my car not start? Don't lose that opportunity. And if there's a person that's giving us a hard time, right? You don't say, why do I deserve this? You have to say, what am I doing? Am I praying for them? Right? Am I using my speech in the possible way? Right? And the third thing in terms of thought, right, which he says here is our children. Okay. If we have a problem with our children, right, you know what? Again, I don't know how many of you are fathers or parents, but what children don't do what we say, children do what we do. It's how children perceive their parents. That's what makes them behave the way that they do. Okay, and so you can talk to a child till you're blue in the face, but ultimately a child will respond to how a parent behaves. Okay, and that's a level of machshava. Okay, I gotta go.
Thank you very much, Joel. Thanks for going to the Chassidic. Was it nice? ARYEH's Chassidic.
I know. It was Well, Giti is my cousin, and we had her nephew, and my second
Your
nephew.
cousin, right, and I couldn't make it to the wedding, and I'm happy that my cousin Shaul went, that's all.
And I went, and it was beautiful. I'll tell you about it later. But
Okay.
we should all have everybody should have we're still starting the week. This is the week of Parshas Balak.
Balak.
Is all the Jewish people are only mentioned in the portion of Balak at the very, very end. The whole portion, God miracles for the Jewish people. God over and over again blocking the evil wizard Bilam from cursing the Jewish people. Okay, Osin the Flois Levado, it says in Psalms that God does. You can understand it in two ways. It says Osin the Flois Levado, that God does miracles by himself. He doesn't need Dennis's help or Giti's help or Moshe's help to make miracles. He can do miracles by himself. Another explanation is that Osin the Flois Levado, he does miracles for us without our even knowing about it. God is doing miracles without even knowing about it. Okay, right? And that's the Jewish people. That even if we think that it's impossible to move ahead, if until the game's not over until the
It ain't over till it's over, right?
It ain't over. Okay.
It should be for everybody, like anything negative in your life should be like this parsha where Hashem changed the curses to blessings. Should be blessings for everybody. Have a wonderful week.
One more question about that.
Wait, no. Okay, I'm open for questions, and even this, I am going to try to translate the text, and I'm going to put it up on Wisdom on the WhatsApp group for the group, and whoever will need to see it. It might take me a few days, but I'm going to do it. Okay, what are you going to ask?
Okay, Deborah in the Book of Judges, she did some bad things that you wouldn't exactly call tzaddik when she went over to the general's tent, went in and did what she did and came out with his head. That's the only way to the feet. Oh, that's negative for a tzaddik, no? I don't want to get into exactly what she did.
Talking about the prophet is Devorah. You're talking about
Deborah, yeah, with the Assyrians.
So
she went over. She became friends with the yeah.
Okay, but I don't think. You know what? I get there. You have something to say? I mean, you know what? I'm not. Maybe I don't remember the story exactly correctly, but even Esther and Mordechai, Esther, right, to save the Jewish people, became the queen of Achashverosh. Okay, and that the fact, and this whole story there is that she said that until she actually went to Achashverosh, until Mordechai discovered the plot of Haman, and he told Esther, this is why you were put into your position of power. Up until that point, she did not. His wife, she didn't accept his affections. It was only when she went to him that she became completely his wife. Okay, in physical and spiritually. Okay, and why did she do it? Right, to save the Jewish people, and ultimately her son built the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so sometimes, you know what? You can't take your life, but there was just a situation a few months ago that a soldier threw himself on a live grenade, tried to save other people. Are you allowed to take your life? No, you're not allowed to take your life. But for the sake of, sometimes there's a situation where you have to, where reality, the reality bends, right? Because there's something larger at work there, Moshe. And that's true in our lives.
I agree with you.
Don't you know what? By Hasidim they say, no matter what, don't be a fool. Don't be a fool, right? Don't fool yourself, right?
Right.
You have to see the situation, right, and deal with it on the highest possible level. Sometimes the highest possible level it requires strength that you didn't know that you had.
But that is lowering yourself to their level. Esther
Absolutely.
did.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In general, again, we shouldn't have to come to that. God shouldn't test us in that
Yes.
way. Okay. And when it happens, we have to, have people around us that we know we're doing the right thing. It's a hard decision to make. Some of the events in the Torah, the events from the scroll of Esther, they were archetypal events. They were things on a in general, we're not faced with those same tests today. Right? We're not, okay? But if you are, it's important to get advice from the right person, right? Okay. And to make sure you're making the right decision. Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I have one more question.
I'm sure.
This is an
All right.
easy one. Just
wait 1 second. Maybe somebody else has a question.
Okay.
Anybody, if there's any other questions, then I'm happy to listen.
Go, Moshe. Go, Moshe. Go.
Go, Moshe. All right.
Okay. One more question. This is a fun one now. I promise. The red heifer. When you touch a dead body, or you're in the same room with a dead body, you must have the red heifer sprinkled on you by the Kohen. Now,
Right.
back in the days, as a matter of fact, back until even the early 1900s, when a person passed away, he or she used to be in the same house as you were. So the whole family would become impure. And back in
Right.
those days, the whole family becomes impure. Now, did
By the way,
Hashem,
wait 1 second. That's the reason why many Jewish authorities discourage Jewish people from going up to the Temple Mount. Even though there are some places on the Temple Mount today where it's permissible for a person who has the impurity of death on him to go up there, there are many places that are not, and it's easy to make a mistake. So many Jewish authorities say, no, because everybody today, we're assuming everyone has the impurity of death on us, you shouldn't go up to the Temple Mount. Okay, okay. Now, so what's your question?
Okay, well, since I'm part of Kedusha Tahara, I probably can't go up there. But anyway, now when the family goes in front of the Kohen, does he get the bulk rate where one sprinkle is the whole family, or does several Kohen? So, this is my question. Or does it have to be several Kohens, which has to become impure themselves and go through their process afterwards?
No, the person who became impure was the person who prepared. Who became impure was the person who prepared the ash. He that prepared the ash, but the person who actually sprinkles, then the ash existed. There was a quantity of ash. Okay, it was a quantity. The first one was made by Moses. There were 8 that were made subsequently after, and we're waiting for the 10th. The 10th red heifer that's going to herald the time of Mashiach. Okay, so the Kohanim that would sprinkle the people that were impure, they wouldn't become impure. They would not. Only the person who made ash. Okay, so it's not it's not as complicated as you thought. All right, to say that.
Otherwise, I thought he becomes impure. He has to just go through a mikvah afterwards.
No, the person who made the ash, who slaughtered the red heifer, offered it, burned it up, that person becomes impure. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Baruch Hashem. Much easier.
And much easier.
I'm gonna go look up Devorah right now. Okay, everybody, my friends, thank you for coming. We should have a good
Thank you.
looking inside.
We're happy that the connection
Have a great
didn't
week,
lose your
everybody.
battery.
Thank you.
All right, bye. I couldn't.
Bye-bye.
We're happy that your battery did not die.
Oh, that's right. It didn't die, but it's gonna go in a second. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Shabbat Tov.
Shavua Tov, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.